Lloyd Vance is going to join us throughout the NFL season, as he typically does, kind enough to join us on a Tuesday on the Boardwalk on the Hotline. And I guess, listen, you were pretty adamant. You were pretty confident. So was I. But we knew it was going to be Foles. And it looks like that's who's going to be under center Thursday night when the Eagles take on the Atlanta Falcons. No surprise there with that one, though.
Yeah, Q, we knew this was coming. And let's not forget, Wentz hurt Week 13. That's in December. He still has not healed fully, not a full year. I know he's a big, strong guy, and he probably will be coming in the next couple weeks or so. But they have to go with Foles at this point, even though he has not been that great in the preseason so far.
Yeah, and listen, I don't have a problem with Doug getting snippy. The bottom line is they're thinking about Carson Wentz's future. Now, they have some other issues to worry about. They're going to be a little short offensively, but a couple of their weapons out. No Alshon as well. They got some players banged up. I think when you look at the Eagles going forward, their defense is going to have to – they're going to have to ride it out with the defense this year. I think we both agree to that. And if or when Carson Wentz comes back, whether it's week 2, week 3, I suspect he'll be back by week 2, by week 3. It's going to take a week or two for the offense to get a little acclimated because he hasn't had any type of serious reps, and it's totally different come game time.
Yes, too. And remember, not clear for contact, so you have to worry about, does he take a hit? You know, in practice, they're not going to put their hands on him because they have the red jersey on. But he's going to be facing some live action, and they're going to have to pick their spot when they want to put him in. Obviously, you're going to lean on Jay Ajayi. He's had the foot injury and his knees are kind of bulky, but he's going to be their guy that's going to lean on first and foremost, and then play action of Ertz and Goddard, the new tight end. So, you know, a lot of weapons for the Eagles, but as you're saying, a lot of injuries going into week 1.
I also think Corey Clement, I think he's actually going to be an integral part of this offense. You look at all the touches he had in the postseason last year. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can block. He can carry the football. We know they're going to go running back by committee, but I think he can be an important cog to this offense.
No doubt about it. And you saw in the Super Bowl that he's a guy that they really got lucky getting as an undrafted free agent. I know he had a couple issues in college, nothing real major, but he really stepped it up in the postseason. And he's a guy they're really looking forward to. He has very good hands. And if Ajayi, as you're saying, if he stumbles, if Wendell Smallwood's not completely the guy they think he's going to be, or Sproles isn't ready to go, they're definitely going to lean on Clement. So they have a lot of weapons there. The thing is, I do want to see the Eagles secondary. Are they ready to step up? Can they shut down Julio Jones again?
Are they a playoff team?
Definitely, Q. You know, I know it's hard being defending Super Bowl champions, and the bullseye will be on their back, but I think they'll find a way to sneak in. But let's not forget this NFC East. I fully expect to be very competitive. You get Alex Smith coming in with the Redskins, and then the Giants trying to redo that defense and Saquon Barkley. So, you know, there's a lot of pieces in this division, and it's going to be a fight to the finish.
I was not overly shocked, but a little surprised that the Giants cut Webb. I think it's a clear indication that they believe he can't play. That's why I've said this from the get-go. I still maintain they believe that number 10 has about 2 to 3 years left. With all that being said, you look at who they drafted in Barkley, and then they pass up on Darnold. Darnold's going to get the start for the Jets on the road, mind you, against Detroit on Monday night. But to me, it's them kind of stripping Reese's roster down a little bit with some of the moves because this team was extremely active on the waiver wire. I guess the question is, why would you wait now to start to bring in a veteran quarterback? To me, it's just you're really banking on Eli being healthy, which he never loses a game, but still, I think you might be playing with a little bit of fire here.
Yeah, and I was going to point to his health streak. Obviously, last year was snapped because he didn't make a consecutive start with Geno Smith stepping in that crazy start, but he's a guy that's been there week in, week out, and they've had a variety of different backups there. You know, even Jared Lorenzen, the hefty lefty, at one time was his backup, and they still won a Super Bowl. So, you know, I think they will continue with Eli, and then eventually they're going to have to find somebody. I do like Lalletta, a guy from the Philadelphia area, and he was a pretty good quarterback at Richmond. So, you know, he's a guy that can come in and make some plays, but I'm just not sure if he's ready to take over if Eli gets hurt. So, if anything happens like that, heaven forbid, they will find a veteran to come in there and take a place.
Yeah, and they got McGloin for a couple reps, and I think maybe to some people the release has more to do with Lalletta than it does with Webb himself, who was picked up by the Jets and placed on their practice squad. I look at this Giants roster, and I look at their schedule. That is just a tough schedule to open up the season. I mean, Jacksonville's a tough spot. Then you turn around 2 on the road against the Cowboys and the Texans, back against the Saints, then the Panthers, then you see the Eagles the first time in October. I mean, listen, it's safe to say if this team comes out and they go 3-3, you would take it if you were a Giant fan. But if they start the season 1-5, it can get ugly pretty fast.
Yeah, you don't want to start with that start, and you want to come out hot. And that's always been Eli's MO when they've had a very good season and made the playoffs. They've started kind of hot and kind of hit a lull in the middle and then picked it up at the end. So, it's going to be on Saquon Barkley. Is he really healthy? I know they said that hamstring is ready to go, but they're going to need him. And that offensive line they rebuilt, they really are counting on Nate Solder. They named him one of the captains, as well as Alec Ogletree, a guy coming over from the Rams on defense. They're counting on these new faces, but you're going to need Olivier Vernon, who's a little beat up, to come step forward on defense. And then on offense, you're going to need Odell to live up to that big contract.
You look around the NFC, and what? Give me a team or two that you think can be a dark horse this year coming out of the NFC.
Well, NFC, I know everybody is really touting the Chicago Bears, and I'll kind of jump on it. You have Mitchell Trubisky in his second year, and Carson Wentz, that's when he made the big leap. They bring in all these free agents with Trey Burton and a lot of those other guys, and then they make the big splash with Khalil Mack. That division is wide open, so I think they could be a team that could make the playoffs. And don't forget about the Seattle Seahawks. I know that's a team. Everybody is like, oh, they were 9-7 last year, lost a lot of guys like Michael Bennett, who's now at the Eagles. But Russell Wilson is such a great competitor, and Pete Carroll still has some guys there that want to compete. So I watch out for those two teams, and they're probably going to make some noise going in November, December.
What about San Francisco with Garoppolo? I just think we always talk about those trendy picks, those trendy teams. I think the way he played last year, I get it was only a sampling size, but I think with the emergence of the 49ers as a whole, they make that division that much more interesting.
They do, and Shanahan's brought in play in there, as well as the general manager John Lynch. They're trying to build something, but the only thing is they lose Jerick McKinnon, their big running back, pick up to an ACL just this weekend. So they're going to have to replace him. And then defensively, they've been stockpiling all these guys all these years on the defensive line and all over that defense. So they need that defense to step up and make plays. But obviously, everybody is looking at the Rams in NFC West to be that team. They spent so much money. They got all these free ups. But will they all fit together?
It's funny because with that loss, I was actually thinking that the Eagles should go after the 49ers should go after Pumphrey, but I'm just reading reports. It looks like the Lions are going to sign Donnell Pumphrey as well. So there's a guy that was cut, never lived up to the billing, coming out of San Diego State, and perhaps has found a home with a team that's also needs a little running back depth as well. Your overall thoughts on the Mack move? I looked at it, and it's amazing. You're going to pay the head coach as much as you're going to pay, but yet you're not going to play your star defensive player who looks like a Hall of Famer, looks like a generational talent at a position that you got to be able to flat out ball on that side of the defensive side of the football. I was shocked and stunned, and I still think we overvalue draft picks way too much. If I'm the Raiders, I figure out a way to pay him.
Yeah, that was their guy, and homegrown talent, a guy who really wanted to be there, but it seemed like Gruden is taking control of that team. Those picks that they're getting for the future are for him to develop that squad, and we know that McKenzie's probably going to be out of there in the next couple of years because Davis has really given him the money and the time on that contract to be the face of that team. So, a lot of head-scratching moves. They also cut Martavius Bryant. I know he has possible drug suspension coming up, but they gave a third-round pick to the Steelers for him and then cut him. So, Gruden making some odd deals out there, but he seems to think he has a plan out there. But you have to always be cautious because if you remember, after they won a Super Bowl in Tampa, he did a lot of tinkering with the personnel department, and that team just fell apart.
I don't know. I don't think he lasts 3 years as an NFL head coach with the Raiders. I get the money is the major issue and the alluring factor. I get it, but I think it's we're either going to look like fools and he's going to be a genius, or it's just going to be ugly. Like, I just don't see any middle ground. I just don't.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because they have the oldest roster in the NFL, so a lot of veterans. But it's going to be on Derek Carr to step it up, and that's a lot to put on a young quarterback who's coming back from a major injury a couple years ago.
All right, speaking of young quarterbacks and a lot on their shoulders, so to speak, how about the Jets with Darnold? I said it from the get-go. They were salivating for a franchise quarterback. I knew they were going to pull the trigger. I just knew he was going to be a starter. I don't get a lot of things right, but I knew he was going to start week one. I think he's pro-ready. Tough spot on the road, though, to open up your career. But still, they have let you know by this move that they're kind of going all in. And it's really not about this year, get his feet wet. It's about next year where they're going to have some money to spend.
Definitely. And Mike McCagney, their general manager, really, this was their guy. They're going to bank the franchise on him. He kind of fell into their lap. Let's face it. He probably should have been the first quarterback off the board, maybe even the first player. Really like his leadership ability, and I think he's going to come in there, take his lumps, but eventually he'll be a leader in Sam Darnold. So not a lot of weapons around him. They're going to need to rebuild that offensive line, but I think it's a good move, and all along we thought he would probably be the only rookie starting, and he is.
Yeah, because you got to look at what's going on in Buffalo, Arizona, Cleveland as well. That still seems to be a mess. I'm looking in the AFC, and I know Pittsburgh and New England are probably going to be those, the two teams to beat. Baltimore, if things break right for them, they can be a borderline playoff team. Jacksonville, I still believe you get that defense, but how sold are we on Bortles, right? To just be consistent and do it week in and week out. There's got to be a team, though, that typically is on the outside looking in that's going to make the playoffs this year coming out of the AFC. In your estimation, what team or teams could that be?
Yeah, and you talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Let's not forget they probably should have been in the playoffs last year, except for that miracle play that got the Bills into end of 17-year drought. So I think that the Ravens are going to be there. Flacco seems to be a fire lit underneath them. And don't forget about the Titans. A lot of people don't talk about that team, but Mike Vrabel bringing that Patriot way. They have a good running game. Mariota, a very efficient quarterback, and a no-name defense. So watch out for the Titans as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I talked about them a little bit before. I can't figure them out because I want to believe in the quarterback, but I've seen a lot of inconsistent play at times. And listen, their schedule is pretty brutal. They open up against Miami, the Texans, Jacksonville, and Philadelphia. That's a brutal stretch to open up that season. And then you got to take in consideration Indianapolis with Andrew Luck. If Andrew Luck is healthy, people think he might be a comeback player of the year. Again, I think a lot. This is a huge year for the Colts and Andrew Luck.
It is, and you got Frank Reich coming in, the quarterback whisperer, who did such a great job of Carson Wentz here in Philadelphia, and I think he's trying to bring some magic back to Andrew Luck. And don't forget, he made an AFC Championship game before his injury, so a very polished young man.
Yeah, no doubt. A couple minutes. Lloyd Vance joining us on a Tuesday inside the Matt Block Kia Studios in 97.3, and, of course, kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. All right, I'm going back to the AFC because I still think it's top-heavy, and I'm looking at some of these other teams. I can't figure out the AFC West. I don't know if I can figure out the AFC South, but I can definitely still figure out the AFC East. Do the Patriots have enough? I mean, is this that we say this year in and year out, it's going to be that last run, that last gas, one more try, one more time with Belichick and Brady. This is a team I think is going to win their 11, 12, 13 games, but are they the clear-cut favorite coming out of the AFC?
Q, right now it's wide open to me, so they can't be a clear-cut favorite, and it has to do with their defense. I know Dante Robinson, Hightower's back, and he's a big guy for them on their defense. You got to keep him healthy. They brought in a lot of free agent types, and they're trying to build up that defense. But you saw in the Super Bowl, they can give up a lot of yards and a lot of yards quick in that secondary. So the Patriots are a pretty big favorite in their division, but I wouldn't say conference-wise they are. So there's a lot of teams out there kind of hungry, and they would like to knock them off. And let's not forget Tom Brady. At his age, you never know when he's going to fall off that cliff. Let's not forget Peyton Manning when he got pretty old.
Yeah, no, that's true. And it's funny that you mentioned Manning because I said his arm strength, he lost his arm strength because I was equating it to Eli for a second where, listen, the arm strength's still there. As long as you can throw the ball down the field and you have a running game, then, typically quarterbacks can last a little longer and they're not sustaining a ton of hits. I know you haven't officially made your divisional picks and your playoff picks and your Super Bowl picks, but give me a prediction where if you said it right now, I'd kind of say you're crazy for the season.
Oh, man.
I'll put you on the spot.
Q, I'll say, here's one for you. The Bengals will make the playoffs, and they will finally win a playoff game under Marvin Lewis.
That's somewhat bold.
They're finally going to pull it together. They have A.J. Green and Andy Dalton. Everyone's laughed at them all these years. I think they finally get that playoff win for Marvin.
All right, I'm going to hold you to it. And don't forget, Lloyd's a great follow on Twitter. We'll recap everything next week. I think week one, look, week one is always interesting because you got good games, but you're going to see some sloppy football. I was saying this to the listening audience. My gut just tells me, again, we're in store for kind of a goofy season. Like, wouldn't it shock me, we're talking about the Jets vying for a playoff spot with Darnold in December, or Garoppolo and the 49ers looking for a good seeding in the NFC. It's just, I just get the sense we're in store for that type of season.
Yeah, 99th year of the National Football League, and there's going to be parity everywhere, so there's going to be a lot of fun watching these games.
All right, we'll have a lot of fun doing it every week. Always appreciate it, pal. Enjoy week one, which starts Thursday night, the Eagles and Atlanta Falcons. We'll talk next Tuesday, bud.
All right, thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. Lloyd Vance, always good stuff with him. Kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk on the Hotline.